Good morning, my friends. I want to remind you today that the battle you're facing is not the end of your story. You may have hit obstacles. You may have heard voices telling you it's over. You've tried too many times. You've made too many mistakes. But I came to tell you, you only lose when you give up. See, life will throw challenges your way. People may doubt you. Doors may close. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's denied. That dream in your heart, that vision you have, it's still alive. The very fact that you're here today means God is not finished with you yet. You see, setbacks are not signs to quit. They are setups for a comeback. Maybe you've been struggling with a health issue, a financial burden, or a broken relationship. It's easy to feel discouraged, but let me tell you something. Just because it's been hard doesn't mean it's not going to happen. There's a story about an athlete who trained for years for one race. Halfway through, he fell. The crowd gasped. Some thought he was out, but instead of staying down, he got up. He limped. He pushed forward, and he crossed that finish line. That's what champions do. They may fall, but they don't stay down. My friend, you may have fallen, but you are not defeated. You may have lost a round, but you haven't lost the fight. If you keep believing, if you keep pressing forward, doors will open, opportunities will come, and victory will be yours. So don't let the enemy convince you to quit. Don't let discouragement talk you out of your destiny. Your breakthrough is coming. Your healing is on the way. Your promotion is around the corner. Stay in faith. Keep moving forward, because you only lose when you give up. Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way. You set out on a path full of excitement and dreams, believing that everything will go according to plan. But then out of nowhere, difficulties arise. Plans fall apart, doors close, and disappointments come knocking at your door. It's easy to assume that a challenge means the end of the road, that somehow because things didn't go the way you expected, you must have failed. But let me remind you today, just because you're facing a challenge doesn't mean your story is over. Think about a seed planted in the ground. Before it ever pushes through the soil, it endures pressure, darkness, and resistance. If you didn't know better, you might think that nothing is happening beneath the surface. But deep down, that seed is growing, strengthening, preparing for the moment it will break through. Your challenge is not burying you, it's preparing you. The pressure you feel is not meant to crush you, it's meant to develop you, to strengthen you for what's coming next. Some of the greatest success stories in history were written in seasons of hardship. Walt Disney was told he lacked creativity. Oprah Winfrey was once fired from a television job. And Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. Imagine if they had seen their challenges as the end of their story. What if they had walked away when things got tough? The truth is, challenges are not stop signs. They are indicators that you are on the right path. Many times when we encounter difficulty, we assume that it's a sign to quit. If this was meant for me, it wouldn't be this hard. But that's not how destiny works. Anything great, anything worth having is going to come with resistance. The enemy doesn't fight people who are going nowhere. The very fact that you're facing challenges is evidence that something powerful is on the other side. If the resistance is strong, it means the reward is great. You may be dealing with a financial crisis, a health battle, or a strained relationship. Maybe you started something new and it didn't work out as planned. It's tempting to think, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should just give up. But let me tell you, just because you hit a rough patch doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Every dream worth chasing will test your endurance. When you face setbacks, it's easy to feel like your progress is wasted. You may have worked hard, invested time, poured your heart into something, only to see it crumble before your eyes. But here's what you need to remember. Nothing is wasted. Every challenge, every setback, every struggle is teaching you something. It's making you stronger, wiser, and more resilient. What you learn in this season will prepare you for the victories ahead. Instead of seeing challenges as a sign to stop, see them as a sign that you're growing. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Gold is refined in fire. The most beautiful masterpieces are made from broken pieces. Your story is not finished. Your best days are still ahead. No matter how hard it seems right now, don't believe the lie that this is where your journey ends. If you keep pressing forward, you will see that the very thing that tried to stop you was actually setting you up for something greater. If you feel discouraged today, if you feel like the challenges are too much to bear, I want you to shift your perspective. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what is this preparing me for? Instead of letting the difficulty push you down, let it push you forward. This is not the end of your story. It's just a chapter. And if you keep going, you'll soon turn the page and step into the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Life has a way of testing us. We set out with big dreams, with plans, with excitement in our hearts. But along the way, obstacles arise. The job doesn't work out. The relationship falls apart. The door we were praying for doesn't open. In those moments, it's easy to feel like a failure, like maybe we weren't meant to succeed. But I want to remind you today, you only lose when you give up. See, losing isn't about falling down. Losing isn't about making mistakes. Losing isn't even about failing. No, the only way you truly lose is if you stop trying. As long as you keep moving forward, as long as you refuse to quit, you are still in the fight. The enemy wants you to believe that it's over, that you've missed your chance. But God says, I am not finished with you yet. Think about a runner in a race. Halfway through, they trip and fall. Some people would look at that and say, they lost. But if that runner gets back up, if they push through the pain, if they keep putting one foot in front of the other, they are still in the race. It doesn't matter if they finish first, second, or last. What matters is that they finish. You may have had some setbacks. You may have had moments where you felt weak. But let me tell you something. Your weakness does not disqualify you. The fact that you are still here, the fact that you are still fighting, means you are stronger than you think. The battle is not over just because you got knocked down. The real battle is in whether or not you get back up. Some of the greatest success stories in history came from people who refused to give up. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. Walt Disney was told he wasn't creative enough. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Imagine if they had quit. Imagine if they had believed the lie that failure was final. The reason they succeeded was because they refused to give up. You might be facing something difficult right now. You might feel like the odds are against you. But let me remind you, the size of your challenge is an indication of the size of your destiny. If it were easy, everyone would do it. If it didn't require faith, it wouldn't be worth it. But because it's difficult, because it's stretching you, because it's testing your perseverance, that's how you know it's worth fighting for. Don't listen to the voices telling you it's too late. Don't believe the lie that you've missed your opportunity. God can restore what was lost, open doors that were shut, and turn your situation around in an instant. But you have to keep moving. You have to keep believing. You have to refuse to give up. So no matter what you're facing today, make the decision, I will not quit. I will not give up. I will keep moving forward, because the only way you lose is if you give up. And I know that's not who you are. You are strong. You are resilient. And your breakthrough is coming. Keep going, because victory is on the way. Life has a way of surprising us. Just when we think everything is falling into place, we hit a roadblock. A dream doesn't work out, a relationship ends, a business fails. It's easy to get discouraged, to think, why is this happening to me? But I want to remind you today that setback is not the end of your story. It's a setup for a comeback. See, setbacks are not signs that you're failing. They're signs that you're growing. Every great success story includes moments of struggle, moments where things didn't go as planned. But here's the key. Just because you're down doesn't mean you're out. The very thing that looks like it's working against you may be the thing that propels you into your greatest victory. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He had a dream that he would be a great leader. But before he ever stepped into that promise, he faced betrayal, false accusations, and years in prison. If you had seen him in the pit or in that prison cell, you might have thought it's over for him. But what looked like a setback was actually God positioning him for something greater. In one moment, he went from a prisoner to second in command over all of Egypt. That's the power of a comeback. Maybe today you feel like you've been knocked down. The business didn't take off. The promotion went to someone else. The dream you prayed for seems out of reach. But let me tell you, God wouldn't have allowed the setback if He didn't already have a comeback plan. What you think is a delay is actually preparation. What looks like rejection is actually redirection. You may have lost a round, but you haven't lost the fight. Think about a bow and arrow. Before an arrow can launch forward, it first has to be pulled back. The tension, the pressure, the pulling is not meant to break it, it's meant to launch it. The further it's pulled back, the further it will fly. Your setback is just the tension that's going to propel you into something greater. Some of the most successful people in history experienced major setbacks before they reached their breakthrough. Steve Jobs was fired from the very company he founded, only to come back years later and turn it into one of the most successful companies in the world. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Imagine if they had given up. The reason they succeeded is because they saw their setbacks as stepping stones, not as stop signs. The enemy wants you to believe that your setback is permanent. He wants you to think that because you failed, you've missed your chance. But let me tell you something. God is still writing your story. What looks like the end is just the middle. What seems like a failure is just a setup for something greater. If you stay in faith, if you refuse to quit, you're going to see that what was meant to break you is actually going to bless you. So don't give up in the middle of your setback. Don't let disappointment convince you to quit. Your comeback is coming. Your victory is on the way. Keep pressing forward. Keep believing, because the best chapters of your story have yet to be written. We all go through seasons in life where nothing seems to be working. You pray, you believe, you give it your best, but the situation doesn't change. Doors close. People walk away. Opportunities seem out of reach. It's easy to start thinking, maybe this is the end. Maybe this is as far as I go. But let me remind you today, hard times don't mean it's over. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean you're stuck. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean your story has come to an end. Think about the storms in nature. The wind howls, the rain pours, and the skies turn dark. But no matter how fierce the storm, one thing is certain. It won't last forever. The sun will shine again, the skies will clear, and what once seemed overwhelming will pass. The same is true for the storms in your life. The trouble you're facing is only temporary. You may be in a season of struggle, but that season is not permanent. Too often when we face difficulties, we assume that they mean we're on the wrong path. If this was meant for me, it wouldn't be this hard. But the truth is, hard times are often a sign that something great is on the way. The enemy doesn't fight people who are going nowhere. He attacks when he sees you stepping into something big. That opposition isn't a sign to quit. It's a sign to keep going. Look at the life of David. He was anointed to be king, but before he ever wore the crown, he faced years of hardship. He was chased down by King Saul, forced to hide in caves, and went through seasons where it looked like his promise would never come to pass. But David understood something. Hard times don't cancel God's promises. Just because it was difficult didn't mean his destiny had changed. Maybe today you're facing a challenge that feels overwhelming. You're thinking, I can't take this anymore. I don't see how this is going to work out. But let me tell you, God sees what you don't see. He knows how to turn the struggle into strength, the trial into a testimony. What looks like an ending to you is just a transition into a new beginning. Your hardest battles often come right before your greatest breakthroughs. Think about a caterpillar inside a cocoon. It goes through darkness, pressure, and struggle. If you saw it in that moment, you might think that's the end. But in reality, that struggle is what makes the wings strong. Without the pressure, the butterfly would never be able to fly. The same is true for you. Your struggles are strengthening you for what's ahead. Hard times don't mean you've lost. Hard times don't mean you failed. They simply mean you're in the process. The pressure you feel is not there to break you. It's there to build you. What you're facing may be difficult, but it's not the end of your story. If you keep going, if you keep believing, you'll come out stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the blessings ahead. So don't let the difficulty fool you into quitting. The storm will pass. The struggle will end. The sun will shine again. This is not where your story ends. This is just the chapter before your breakthrough. Life has a way of knocking us down. No matter how strong, talented, or determined we are, we all face moments of failure, disappointment, and heartbreak. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't that champions never fall. It's that when they do, they refuse to stay down. See, champions are not people who have never failed. They are people who have failed and gotten back up. They've faced setbacks. They've heard no more times than they can count. They've had moments where everything seemed to be falling apart. But what makes them champions is their refusal to quit. Think about a boxer in the ring. The fight is tough. The opponent is strong, and the hits keep coming. At some point, the boxer gets knocked down. The referee starts counting. Now the boxer has two choices: stay down and lose the fight, or get back up and keep swinging. A champion knows that the only way to truly lose is to stay on the mat. So they wipe the sweat from their face, push past the pain, and stand back up, ready to fight again. Maybe today life has knocked you down. Maybe you faced a disappointment that took your breath away. You thought that opportunity was yours, but the door closed. You gave your best to a relationship and it still fell apart. You worked hard for that promotion and someone else got it. It's okay to feel the pain, but it's not okay to stay down. You have to rise again. Look at some of the greatest champions in history. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't good enough for TV. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. What if they had stayed down? What if they had let one failure define their entire future? The reason they succeeded is because they refused to let failure have the final say. Even in Scripture, we see this principle at work. Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, denied him 3 times. He messed up in a big way. He could have stayed down, filled with shame and regret, but instead he got back up, and God still used him to do incredible things. Your failures don't disqualify you. Your past mistakes don't cancel your destiny. If you keep getting back up, God will still fulfill His plan for your life. You may have lost a round, but the fight isn't over. The fact that you're still here, still breathing, still trying, is proof that you have what it takes. Champions don't let defeat define them. They don't let failures break them. They learn from the setback, adjust their strategy, and come back stronger. So don't let life convince you to stay down. You were made for more. The same God who put dreams in your heart is the same God who will give you the strength to get back up. Keep fighting, keep believing, keep pushing forward. Because champions don't stay down. We've all made mistakes. We've all had moments we wish we could erase, choices we regret, and seasons where we didn't do our best. It's easy to let the weight of our past hold us back, to believe that because we messed up, we can never move forward. But let me remind you today, your past doesn't define your future. Just because you failed doesn't mean you're a failure. Just because you made a bad decision doesn't mean your life is ruined. God doesn't consult your past to determine your future. He didn't look at where you've been to decide where you're going. He sees beyond your mistakes, beyond your setbacks, and into the incredible purpose He has for you. Think about Moses. He had a calling on his life, but in a moment of anger, he made a terrible decision. He killed a man. Out of fear, he ran away, thinking his destiny was over. But years later, God called him back, not as a fugitive, but as a leader. The very man who once ran in shame became the one to lead an entire nation to freedom. Moses' past didn't define his future, and yours won't either. Maybe today you feel stuck because of your past. The enemy keeps reminding you of what you did, the people you hurt, the opportunities you wasted. But let me tell you something. God's mercy is bigger than your mistake. He can take what was meant for harm and turn it around for good. He can take your worst failures and still use them to fulfill His purpose. Think about Peter. He walked with Jesus, saw miracles, and yet in Jesus' darkest moment, Peter denied even knowing Him. He could have let that mistake define him, but he didn't. Instead of staying in shame, Peter repented, got back up, and went on to preach to thousands, helping to spread the gospel across the world. Your worst moment is not the end of your story. One of the biggest lies the enemy tells us is that we are trapped by our past, that because we've messed up, we can never have a fresh start. But let me remind you, God is in the business of new beginnings. The Bible says His mercies are new every morning. That means no matter what you did yesterday, today is a new day filled with new grace, new opportunities, and new hope. Your past may be a chapter in your story, but it is not the whole book. You may have made mistakes, but you are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are a child of God created with purpose, destined for greatness. If you let go of the past and embrace the future, there's no limit to what God can do through you. So stop letting guilt and shame hold you back. Stop believing the lie that your best days are behind you. Your past is just a lesson, not a life sentence. If you trust God, if you keep moving forward, your future will be greater than anything you've left behind. Life is full of challenges, obstacles, and moments that make you want to quit. You pray, you believe, you do everything you can, but nothing seems to change. The door stays closed, the opportunity doesn't come, and the situation remains the same. In those moments, it's tempting to give up, to think maybe it's not meant to be. But let me remind you today, breakthroughs come to those who persist. The difference between people who see their dreams come to pass and those who don't isn't talent, intelligence, or luck. It's persistence. The ones who refuse to quit, who keep believing when nothing is happening, who press on when it gets hard. Those are the ones who see the breakthrough. If you don't give up, you will reap the reward. Think about a farmer planting seeds. He waters them, takes care of them. But for a long time, nothing happens. Days go by, then weeks, and still no sign of growth. But just because he doesn't see anything doesn't mean nothing is happening. Beneath the surface, the seed is taking root. The moment will come when that seed will break through the ground and grow into a great harvest. The same is true for your life. Just because you don't see progress doesn't mean your breakthrough isn't on the way. Look at the story of Joseph. He had a dream that he would be a great leader, but before that dream came to pass, he went through years of hardship. Betrayed by his brother, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison. If anyone had a reason to give up, it was Joseph. But he kept his faith. He kept doing the right thing, and in one moment, everything changed. He went from the prison to the palace, from being forgotten to being second in command over all of Egypt. His breakthrough came because he didn't quit. Maybe today you're facing a challenge that feels impossible. You've been praying for a long time, but nothing has changed. You've been working hard, but you're not seeing results. Let me encourage you. You are closer than you think. The enemy wouldn't be fighting you this hard if something great wasn't on the way. The struggle means that the breakthrough is near. Think about an athlete training for a race. They push through exhaustion, pain, and setbacks because they know the finish line is ahead. What if they stopped running just before they reached the end? What if they quit because it was too hard? They would have missed the victory that was right in front of them. The same applies to you. Don't quit. when you're on the verge of a breakthrough. The Bible says, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. That means your reward is coming. Your breakthrough is on the way. But the key is in the last part. If we do not give up, the promise is there, but it's for those who persist. So no matter what you're facing today, keep pushing forward. Keep praying, keep believing. You may not see it yet, but your breakthrough is already in motion. God is working behind the scenes, and at the right time, everything will fall into place. Stay the course, because your persistence will lead to victory. Discouragement is one of the enemy's greatest weapons. He knows that if he can get you to doubt yourself, to feel like you're not good enough, or to believe that your situation will never change, he can keep you from stepping into your destiny. That's why you have to make a decision. Refuse to listen to discouragement. The truth is, everyone hears negative voices. Maybe it's people around you saying, you'll never make it, you're wasting your time, you're not qualified. Or maybe it's that inner voice whispering, why even try? Nothing is working, just give up. But let me remind you today, you don't have to accept every thought that comes your way. Just because discouragement knocks doesn't mean you have to let it in. Look at David in the Bible. Before he became king, he faced countless moments of discouragement. When he stepped up to fight Goliath, his own family mocked him. King Saul told him he was too young. The giant insulted him, making him feel small. But David refused to listen. He didn't let their words get into his spirit. Instead, he focused on what God had said about him, that he was chosen, anointed, and victorious. Maybe today you're hearing voices telling you to quit. You'll never start that business. You'll never get out of debt. You'll never meet the right person. But let me tell you something. The enemy wouldn't be fighting you so hard if there wasn't something great in your future. The bigger the opposition, the greater the breakthrough ahead. The key is to replace discouragement with truth. When the voice says you're not strong enough, you say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. When the voice says you'll never overcome this, you say, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. When the voice says it's too late, you say, God's timing is perfect and he is making a way. Think about Nehemiah. He was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, doing exactly what God had called him to do. When critics showed up, they mocked him, tried to intimidate him, and did everything they could to stop him. But Nehemiah didn't waste time arguing. He didn't let their words shake him. He simply said, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. That's the attitude we need. You are doing a great work. You have a calling. You have a purpose. Don't come down to the level of negativity. Don't let the opinions of others stop you from stepping into what God has for you. People may not believe in you, but that's okay. God believes in you. So today, make up your mind. You will not be discouraged. You will not let fear, doubt, or negativity steal your destiny. Keep pressing forward. Keep standing strong and keep believing, because what's ahead is greater than anything behind you. Life will always give you reasons to quit. The road to your destiny is filled with challenges, setbacks, and moments when you feel like giving up. But let me remind you today, your destiny is too important to abandon. The dream in your heart, the purpose on your life, the calling that God has placed on you, it's bigger than the obstacles you're facing. Too often, people give up too soon. They walk away from what God has prepared for them because it's taking too long, it's harder than they expected, or they don't see progress. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's not worth it. Anything great requires perseverance. Every champion, every leader, every person who has ever accomplished something significant had moments when they wanted to quit. But the difference is they refused to abandon their destiny. Think about Joseph. He had a dream that he would be a great leader, but everything in his life seemed to go in the opposite direction. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. If anyone had a reason to give up, it was Joseph. But he held on, he stayed faithful, and in one moment, Everything changed. He went from the prison to the palace. His destiny came to pass because he refused to abandon it. Maybe today you're feeling discouraged. You're looking at your situation and thinking it's too late, it's too hard. Maybe I heard wrong. But let me tell you something. God doesn't put a dream in your heart without giving you the strength to fulfill it. If He called you to it, He will bring you through it. The delays, the disappointments, the difficulties, none of them can cancel what God has ordained for your life. Look at Moses. God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, but it didn't happen overnight. He faced opposition from Pharaoh, resistance from the people, and moments when he felt completely overwhelmed. But every time he was tempted to quit, he kept pressing forward. Why? Because the destiny was too important to abandon. The enemy would love for you to quit. He knows that if you keep going, you will see the promise. If you keep pushing, you will walk into the blessing. That's why he tries to discourage you, to make you feel like it's not worth it. But let me tell you today, you are closer than you think. The very fact that you're facing opposition is proof that you're on the right track. Think about an expectant mother. She carries the baby for months, goes through discomfort, and then when the labor pains start, it's the most difficult part of the journey. But that's not the time to give up. That's the time to push. Because on the other side of that pain is the birth of something beautiful. The same is true for you. The pressure, the struggle, it's not a sign that it's over. It's a sign that your breakthrough is near. So don't quit. Don't give up on the dream. Don't walk away from your purpose. Your destiny is too important to abandon. Stay the course, trust God, and keep moving forward, because what He has planned for you is greater than anything you could ever imagine. No matter what you're facing today, no matter how big the obstacle or how long the struggle has been, let me remind you, victory is ahead. You may not see it yet, you may feel tired, you may even wonder if it will ever happen. But if you keep pressing forward, you will walk into everything God has promised you. Now is not the time to give up. Too often people give up right before their breakthrough. They let the delays, disappointments, and difficulties convince them that it's not meant to be. But the truth is, the closer you are to victory, the harder the enemy will fight you. Why? Because he knows that if you keep going, you're going to win. If you stay in faith, you're going to see God do what He promised. That's why the pressure has been so strong, the resistance so intense, because you're right on the verge of something great. Think about the Israelites when they were about to enter the promised land. They had wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. They had seen miracles, but they had also faced setbacks. And just when they were about to step into their destiny, what happened? They faced the biggest walls they had ever seen, Jericho. If they had looked at the size of the walls, if they had listened to doubt and fear, they would have given up. But instead, they obeyed God, kept marching, and on the seventh day, the walls came crashing down. Victory was already ahead of them. They just had to keep pressing forward. Maybe today, you're facing your own Jericho. The wall looks too big, the mountain seems too high, and the battle feels too strong. But let me encourage you, God didn't bring you this far to leave you now. The same God who carried you through the past will carry you into your future. What He started, He will finish. Look at David. Before he became king, he had to face a giant named Goliath. But notice, the battle came before the crown. The challenge came before the promotion. If David had backed down, if he had let fear win, he would have never stepped into his destiny. But because he pressed forward, because he stood in faith, because he refused to run, he walked into victory. The Bible says, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. That means your reward is coming. Your breakthrough is ahead. But the key is to not give up. Maybe today you feel like you're running out of strength. You've been fighting, believing, standing firm, and it seems like nothing is changing. But let me remind you, God sees your faithfulness. He sees your perseverance. And He promises that if you don't give up, you will see victory. So keep pressing forward. You are closer than you think. The enemy wants you to stop, but God is saying, keep going. The finish line is ahead. The breakthrough is around the corner. Victory is yours. Just don't quit. My friend, you may have faced struggles, setbacks, and moments where you felt like giving up. But let this be your reminder. God is still in control. He has not brought you this far just to leave you. The battle you're fighting, the obstacles in your way, the delays that seem unfair, they are all part of the process leading you to your destiny. When it gets tough, when the voices of doubt get loud, when you feel tired and discouraged, remember this: victory is ahead. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to keep pressing forward. Keep praying, keep believing, keep walking in faith, because the doors will open, the walls will fall, and the breakthrough will come. God is working behind the scenes in ways you can't see. At the right time, in the right way, everything He has promised will come to pass. So don't quit. Don't let fear, doubt, or disappointment talk you out of your destiny. Your past doesn't define you. Your struggles won't stop you. Your best days are still ahead. Keep moving forward. Keep standing strong. And get ready, because your victory is closer than you think.